We are following breaking news at this hour here on Live Now from Fox. You're taking a live look at the White House as we have learned that President Trump is now ordering action to be taken against the country of Colombia, saying, quote, "I was just informed that two repatriation flights from the United States with a large number of illegal criminals were not allowed to land in Colombia. This order was given by Colombia's socialist president, who is already very unpopular amongst his people. His denial of these flights has jeopardized the national security and public safety of the United States. So I have directed my administration to immediately take the following urgent and decisive retaliatory measures."
I'm unstoppable. I'm a Porsche with no brakes. I'm invincible. I win every single day.
All right, strap yourselves in, folks, because today we're diving headfirst into a story, some real fireworks between the U.S. and Colombia.
Oh yeah, this one's got it all.
We're talking news articles, social media posts, you name it.
The whole 9 yards.
It's the kind of situation that could have blown up into a full-on international crisis.
No kidding.
And it all started with Colombia's President Gustavo Petro basically telling the U.S. to take a hike.
Well, to be fair, it wasn't quite that simple.
Okay, maybe not a total take a hike, but he did refuse to let 2 U.S. military planes carrying Colombian migrants land back in Colombia.
Right, and that's where things get interesting.
Lay it on us.
Well, you gotta understand, Petro's not your average president. He's a self-described socialist.
So his whole political philosophy is built on different ideas than we're used to seeing from, say, like a traditional U.S. politician.
Exactly. His platform emphasizes social justice, economic equality, things like that.
So when he refused to let those planes land, it was a very deliberate move.
Oh, absolutely. He saw it as the U.S. trying to deport people who'd been, in his view, unfairly labeled as criminals.
So right off the bat, we've got this clash of ideologies.
You got it.
Petro standing up for what he believes in, even if it means ruffling some feathers.
Right, and maybe he didn't fully grasp just how many feathers he was about to ruffle.
Because enter former President Trump, who never met a diplomatic solution he couldn't tweet through.
Oh boy, yeah, this is where things get really spicy.
I mean, the man basically goes full on scorched earth on Truth Social, right?
Pretty much.
Threatening everything but the kitchen sink.
It was pretty astonishing even for Trump.
Break it down for us. What was he actually proposing to do?
Well, he started with a 25% tariff on all Colombian goods entering the U.S.
Ouch!
And hinted it could jump to 50% within a week.
That's gotta hurt.
Then he added travel bans and visa revocations for Colombian officials and their families.
Wow, talk about hitting below the belt.
It was like he was going down a checklist of every possible pressure point.
So I'm picturing myself as a Colombian official at that moment scrolling through Truth Social.
Oh.
And seeing my whole world about to implode.
Yeah, not a good feeling.
You have to wonder what was going through Petro's mind when he saw that.
Right, because this is where social media really comes into play.
It's not just a private message, it's a global megaphone.
Exactly. Trump posts it on Truth Social, but within minutes, it's everywhere. Major news outlets are all over it.
So suddenly, it's not just online chatter, it's international news.
Right, the whole world is watching, and the pressure's building by the second.
Like a diplomatic pressure cooker about to explode?
You could say that, yeah.
So Petro's stuck between this rock and a hard place.
Right, there's principles on one side, and this potential economic and political fallout on the other.
What's a president to do?
Well, that's where things take a truly wild turn.
Oh boy, here we go.
Just 39 minutes after Trump unleashes this online firestorm, Petro does a complete 180.
Wait, 39 minutes?
39 minutes. He not only allows the planes to land, but he offers up his own presidential plane to help with the deportations.
Whoa, talk about a plot twist.
It was a pretty stunning move.
Almost makes you wonder if he had a blink moment.
Like, whoa, okay, maybe I poked the bear a little too hard.
Right, because offering up your own presidential plane, that's not just backing down, it's practically rolling out the red carpet.
It sends a very clear message, that's for sure.
And it begs the question, why the sudden change of heart?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Was it genuine fear of what those sanctions could do to Colombia?
It's possible.
Or was it a calculated move to appease the U.S. and save face back home?
Could be that too.
Because, let's face it, the economic impact alone would be enough to make any leader think twice.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about potentially crippling tariffs that could affect everything from Colombian coffee to basically anything they export to the U.S.
Right. And then you add in the political fallout he might face at home from opponents who see this as a sign of weakness.
It's a high-stakes game of chess, and Petro had to make a move.
For sure.
So this is where I'm really curious to get your expert take.
Okay, shoot.
Knowing Petro's ideology, his political standing, the whole dynamic between the U.S. and Colombia, what do you think was the driving force behind his decision?
Was it better safe than sorry? Or something more strategic?
That's a great question. And to really understand what was going on in Petro's head, we need to dig a little deeper into a few key things.
I mean, we're talking about a guy who's made his whole career on standing up for the little guy, challenging the status quo.
Right, the underdog.
And suddenly he's staring down the barrel of this massive economic and political threat.
Must have felt like the walls were closing in.
Absolutely. So how do you square that with his principles?
This is a tough spot to be in. You're trying to protect your people from what you see as unfair treatment by the U.S.
But you also know that defying a superpower like that comes at a price.
A big price.
And let's not forget that whole socialist leanings thing.
Right, that's not just some abstract label. It's his whole approach to governing. He's prioritizing social programs, wealth redistribution things that often clash with the interests of powerful entities.
Both within Colombia and internationally.
So this wasn't just about a few planes full of migrants.
No, this was about challenging the whole system.
It's like he threw down the gauntlet.
And someone like Trump, who thrives on projecting strength and dominance, that's not going to fly.
So it becomes this clash of personalities as much as anything else.
Absolutely. Petro, the idealistic reformer, versus Trump, the no-nonsense deal maker.
And the battleground social media, of course.
Oh yeah, the perfect arena for this kind of showdown.
Because Trump uses Truth Social to bypass all the traditional diplomatic channels.
Goes straight to the public, putting immense pressure on Petro.
It's a tactic we've seen him use time and time again.
And it's incredibly effective because it creates this instant global spectacle.
It's like he's playing high-stakes poker and just went all in with a pair of deuces.
Everyone's watching, wondering if he's bluffing, and the stakes are sky high.
And the scary part, it seems to work. Petro folds, backs down, offers his own plane as a gesture of submission.
It's hard to say for sure what was going through his mind.
Maybe he was just being pragmatic, trying to protect his country from further harm.
Could be, but it does raise some unsettling questions about the future of international relations.
If a leader like Trump can bully another country into submission using social media, what does that mean for diplomacy?
Yeah, are we headed towards a world where tweets and Truth Social posts carry more weight than treaties and negotiations?
It's a scary thought.
It is, and it's something that should make us all stop and think. Because this whole incident, as dramatic as it was, might just be a preview of what's to come.
As social media becomes more and more intertwined with politics, we're going to see more of these public power struggles.
Yeah, and the consequences could be huge.
It's a reminder that power isn't just about military might or economic influence anymore.
It's about information control, the ability to shape the narrative to win hearts and minds.
Or at least sow enough doubt and confusion to get what you want.
And social media is a weapon of mass influence in that arena.
So while the immediate crisis between the U.S. and Colombia may have been averted,
this whole thing has exposed a much deeper, more systemic issue.
The weaponization of social media in international relations.
And that's not going away anytime soon.
So where do we go from here?
What can we learn from this whole roller coaster ride?
Are there any guardrails we can put in place to prevent this kind of diplomatic chaos from becoming the norm?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do we navigate this new world where a single tweet can trigger an international incident?
Because it's not just about leaders using social media to throw their weight around.
It's also about the way it can amplify existing tensions, create this echo chamber effect.
Where people are only exposed to information that confirms their biases.
Like pouring gasoline on a fire.
Exactly, and that's where I think the real work needs to be done.
We need to start thinking critically about the information we consume online.
About the sources we trust, and the role social media plays in shaping our understanding of the world.
It's like we need to develop a whole new set of diplomatic skills.
Not just for world leaders, but for everyday citizens.
Absolutely. We need to become more savvy consumers of information, more discerning about what we share and believe.
And more willing to engage in constructive dialogue with people who hold different viewpoints.
Because at the end of the day, that's the only way we're going to prevent these kinds of conflicts from spiraling out of control.
We need to build bridges, not walls, both online and offline.
It's a tall order.
But it's one we can't afford to ignore.
Exactly. Because as this deep dive has shown us, the stakes are just too high.
So it's like we almost need a whole new handbook for diplomacy for the digital age, right?
I think you're onto something there.
We need to figure out how to navigate these online power struggles.
Without resorting to threats and ultimatums, yeah.
And even if we manage to avoid like a full-blown war or an economic meltdown, this kind of online aggression can still do a lot of damage.
Oh, absolutely. It erodes trust, fuels resentment.
Makes it that much harder to cooperate on the big issues.
Right. The things we really need to be working together on, like climate change pandemics.
It's like we're constantly chipping away at the foundations of global cooperation.
And the long-term consequences of that could be devastating.
I think this whole episode has been a real wake-up call.
It definitely highlights how quickly things can spiral out of control in the age of social media.
How personal grudges and power plays can have these ripple effects across the globe.
Yeah, and how traditional diplomacy is really struggling to keep up.
It's like the old playbook just doesn't cut it anymore.
No kidding.
So where do we go from here?
What have we learned from this whole crazy roller coaster ride?
It feels like we're at a crossroads.
I think you're right. We can't just sit back and watch as these trends play out.
We need to start having some serious conversations
about how to navigate this new digital landscape.
About the ethics of online power dynamics.
And about the role we all play in shaping the future of international relations.
Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about Petro and Trump.
Or even just the US and Colombia.
It's about all of us.
It's about the kind of world we want to live in.
The kind of future we want to create.
That's what makes this deep dive so important.
It's not just about understanding what happened in the past.
It's about asking ourselves, what now?
What can we do individually and collectively to make sure the digital age leads to more understanding and cooperation?
Rather than conflict and division.
So to our listeners out there, we leave you with this. What role do you want to play in shaping the future of international relations?
How can you use your voice and your actions to promote peace, understanding, and cooperation in a world that's increasingly interconnected, but also increasingly volatile?
Because the choices we make today, both online and offline, will have a huge impact on the world of tomorrow.
And as always, keep diving deeper.
The more we learn, the more we question, and the more we connect, the better equipped we'll be to navigate this complex world.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, folks.
Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and stay informed.
And remember, there's always more to uncover.